Everyone, welcome to Stand-Up Analysis. We're going to be reviewing a stand-up set, viewing what went well, what maybe didn't go so well, and the decisions we made along the way. If you like this content, give us a like, comment, subscribe. Before we start, do you want to introduce yourself and give us any context into the set via the venue, the audience, etc.?
Okay, so I'm Kamau Lewis. I'm a DC-based comedian, and I've been doing comedy for about a year and a half. This was a show I produced on the 1st of May. It's my first show I ever produced, and it was called Comedy for a Cause. It was we were raising $500 for the Palestinian Children's Relief Fund, and the context for the introduction is important. So this is the first show I really invited a lot of my friends and family to come see me do stand up. Before, usually like one or two friends at most.
Yeah.
But like this was the show. I was like, you need to come here because we're actually raising money for something cool. But yeah, that's the audience, and the venue's dive bar, a really good dive bar in DC.
Oh,
but yeah,
great. I mean, hey, dive bar.
Yeah.
A lot of comedy happens in dive bars. Okay, so let's start with the footage.
You guys are really gonna boo me right in front of my mom over there? Wow!
Okay, great. So I always harp on opening moments because it's really how we start to train the audience in sort of like a good way or a bad way. Before I bias the room, how do you feel about your sort of like introduction, your opening moment to the audience?
Oh no, I felt fine. It was kind of funny because, like I said, it's a lot of my friends are in the audience. A lot of them started booing me. So I've never been booed coming up on stage before. So yeah.
I like what we do. Look, they're booing us, but that's really them going, "We want to play with you. We want to play with you," which is a good thing since we know it's not a negative boo in this. And I think we handled it well. We come up on stage, we let them voice that. We don't try to like immediately start. So we basically are signaling that, hey, yeah, it's okay if you guys have feelings. I will let you release your feelings, which means they'll be more comfortable to make noise later. And we're not like, oh, fuck you. Like, oh, you naughty rapscallions. Like, I gotta kind of stop this, but I'm not shitting on you for it. And then we do a great joke to sort of resolve it with like, really, with my mom in the room, to show like, oh, I can play back. So I love this sort of initial setup of our relationship with the audience. It's a difficult moment to get full on booed and then to be like, oh shit, I have to start. And I have to somehow start into it. Like, there's a lot of comedians who their set already would have been dead right now. So I really like the way we handled that personally. Pacing with the back and forth and with the mom button to sort of like throw an olive branch. So great.
Well, I'm trying to look more tough and intimidating.
Great. So this is to me, this sort of shows a higher level comic to a lower level comic. And what I mean by that is a lot of lower level comics, when they start off, they're like, I'm trying to look more intimidating. Here's my second thing. Here's my third thing. Here's my fourth thing. Now here's my joke. But the audience is going to have feelings about anything we say. So you say, I'm trying to look more intimidating. We know the audience is going to have sort of feelings for that, and we give them the space to react. We let them know that, hey, your feelings are validated. I'm going to leave a little hole here for you guys to be like, oh, aha, or just even laugh at just the first drop of information. I absolutely love that. That's on your end.
Yeah, pretty much right. And, because I'm not an intimidating guy. I'm like 5'7", not that big, and I'm really cheery, so I always kind of like to play off my like looks or my appearances during my first joke because the audience is kind of already reading you as you go up and how you present yourself, the way you dress, the way you talk, the way you look. And so I'm kind of a goofy guy, so I'm gonna play into that. Like, me being intimidating is a joke already in itself.
Watch, those who might be watching after the fact, if you watch a lot of like classic stand-up sets, usually the first bit is like, hey, I know I look like this, or oh, you might be wondering why I sound like this, because yeah, the audience has a bunch of those tensions that they immediately assume about us, so it's very easy to take those as the first things we talk about. Otherwise, the audience is going to be like, is he not going to talk about that sling? Is he not going to, and like, if you do an hour-long set and you don't get into it until minute 40, the whole time they've been sitting there. It's like comedians when they go on stage, if they have like a guitar on stage, if you don't mention it or resolve it the whole time until you do a song, you're always like, what the fuck is the guitar doing here? It's just an interesting thing. But yeah, I absolutely love this as a first information drop, and then we make sure that the audience knows that if they have emotion, hey, I'm gonna wait for you guys. You guys can express your emotion. It means that they'll be more likely to make noise for you and make bigger laughs when we do get to like the true punchline. So I love that relaxedness, and a lot of the most common mistakes in stand-up is people thinking like, no, I gotta get 8 sentences in so I can get to my 9th sentence joke. And by then the audience is trained to sit back and just like be in story mode. So I love it.
I went to the, oh yeah, we're doing poses this show, okay? Just go with it.
I also like that. So like once again, right up top, we're training the audience, and yeah, we're on a logical tension of like, hey, I am not intimidating, and we're trying to get that joke out. But when we put our leg up, the audience, they have a reaction to it, and so especially up top, is it most optimized to jump off of our joke to go into the pose joke? You could argue one way or the other, but what I do really love is that we're validating, hey audience, if you say something to me, I will react to it. This is a really live show. So especially up top, I love that move of the audience sort of like laughed at our little pose and then like, oh yeah, we're doing poses. The extra cherry on top, if you wanted to, and once again, it's easy for me to say after the fact, harder to do anything, but like you set up this premise like we're doing poses now. Yeah. Mommy. I think you could have gotten a little bit more juice out of the squeeze than the one pose. I don't know. Thoughts on your end?
Oh no, that was just like spur of the moment thing.
Yeah.
I usually don't pose too much on stage, but I think I'm still kind of get comfortable into my set. Just like, okay, let me try this out. But like definitely I probably could have like milked it a little bit more and get a little bit more out of it. But I think in that like second, I'm like, let's just go through let's just get through to the jokes and get into that like that. You know, that rhythm you hit on stage. I think I'm still trying to get like a feel for that, especially within like, you know, a minute into like this set was 10 minutes long in total, but yeah, I spliced it up in 5 minutes.
Yeah, I was about to say, I thought I saw a longer version of this earlier. Like the piloting of like, okay, I haven't gotten to my jokes yet, and it's like right up top, so maybe we steer towards getting towards our joke. But I just do want to flag that if we find something clever like that spur of the moment and playing with the audience, once again, it's hard to do in the moment, but if we can get in the habit of like, oh shit, this is the joke now, let me make sure I end this joke to its full logical conclusion instead of just like mentioning the idea of this joke and then blazing past it, because I'm doing poses now could just as easily have been the joke, and we could have played with that a lot. And so it's like, yeah, no harm, no foul that in all the stressors, we only did one thing with it. But in the long term, if we get in the habit of like, oh shit, I did something improvised, and they like that, okay, maybe let me do a few more things with that instead of just like one touch and then jumping off.
I went to the club the other day, you know, and fun fact about me, I'm kind of ticklish. The bouncer was patting down people before we got in. He really didn't like that fun fact about myself, actually.
Ticklish thing. So normally, I consider a joke to have been like fully sort of expressed either when we make a big song and dance moment, we play with the audience, or we have a big personal moment with this. So it's like you told us like, I am very ticklish. The bouncer didn't like that, but these are all logical ideas going into my logical head, so the only like laughter response can be a logical laughter response versus like that bouncer is patting me down. I was like, oh, no, that's not a gun. Oh, you're a big strong. You know what I'm saying? Like to show instead of tell. That would have maybe felt like we got the full juice out of the squeeze, or something more than just like, hey, here's a fun idea. Okay, now we're done with the idea. Like we introduced the concept of the joke, but we didn't fully pay it off. Like in my view, do we see that?
Yeah, no, definitely. And like kind of like the acting out bit you did, that's definitely something I might want to try or explore better, because I think I definitely need to be, just in general, a little bit more physical, you know, in my comedy, you know, just a little bit. Not a ton, but it would help.
Yeah. You know, I mean, it doesn't have to be that big. It can be even like, you know, I'm really ticklish. High five. Oh, yeah. Ooh. Like we can even play with. There's subtler ways to do that. So I don't want you to go full William style. But because laughter is a tension release. If we're just building tension with just words, the tension is only in our logical brain. But if we can make it visceral in the room, then it's lizard brain tension. And then the audience like, oh, we almost died. Oh, the laugh has to be bigger because the tension is more visceral and real. So ideally, we do something that involves the audience or is bigger and real and not just dependent on words and you thinking and you turning words into pictures in your head, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Therapy, and it was like really difficult because, you know, it's hard being the first person because you have to be the trailblazer. And, my parents came to me a few weeks ago and was like, hey, Kamau, you inspired us to go and seek therapy. And my reaction was, nah. Therapy's kind of like my thing. It's kind of like my hobby. I don't think you guys just can't do that. And my sister was like, you can't gatekeep therapy, Kamau. Like, I spoke to my therapist. He said my feelings were valid, which to translate that to normal people speak is, you're right, everyone else is wrong. And I was like, who is he really going to side with? Me, Mr. Tuesday, 2:30 p.m.? Or you? No. Yeah, don't call me a Tuesday, 2:30 p.m., actually. I should not have said actually that. Oh, man. Have any of you guys ever gotten...
Okay, great. How do we feel about our therapy joke?
Oh no, it's definitely like one of my bit more older jokes. I really like it, and kind of like pivoted at the last second because usually sometimes I don't drop like, Mr. Tuesday at 2:30 p.m. Then I realized like, wow, that's actually like close to the time I actually do have therapy. I should probably say, please don't call me around them. I will be very busy. So it was a little bit spur of a moment thing, kind of like playing with the bit in real time. Like, wow, actually, I said that in a room full of people who actually do have my phone numbers.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, if we want, I mean, it's easy to have the fact, but if we really want to play with me, don't call me at Tuesday at 2:30. I'll be talking about you and you
Yeah.
and definitely you, Mom. You personalize that with the audience.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's probably like my favorite joke I've told like within like the 5 minutes here. Yeah.
Oh, I like it a lot because we spend a little bit of time up top, but I think it is worth it because we're digging into like a real somber subject and we're like, hey, here's some serious things. Oh, and now I'm taking a quirky point of view on it, like, and I think because we spent so much time in the top, we bought the honesty dollars to be able to have the sort of quirkier expression on the like, no, fuck you, family, it's mine, it's my thing. I like it, and we get plenty on the payoff period. We get plenty of payoffs. We don't just go for one. We go like one, then we go back in, then we go in another one. Love this.
Oh man, have any of you guys ever gotten ghosted before? Damn. Oh. You did, Mom, in high school?
Great.
Dude, let me beat this guy up. Yeah. Okay. It was a thought that counts.
I mean, look. Your mom, your friend, they're all sort of like playing with you in kind of disruptive ways. But we're dealing with it great, and they're sort of doing our job for us. And that all we have to do is react in some way that resolves what they said, and we get free jokes. So great rolling with the punches. Your thoughts that maybe went through your head as you were navigating that moment, because it was like first the mom thing, and then I can't tell if it was your mom or a different friend that was like, not like that to you.
No, it was a different friend who said that, and I'm gonna be honest, that was completely like unprompted, but I was like in shock, like kind of just like rolling with it. And because I think, having, my mom in the audience and my friend chiming in, it felt like a conversation I would just normally have between probably the two of them if I just found out this information. Because I was
Sure.
like, whoa, I was not expecting this, but this is something I can definitely like play off of and like kind of like roll with it because I'm finding out this information for the first time too.
Yeah, so there's a thing in anytime we're dealing with the audience, especially with crowd work, one of the biggest dangers is to stack questions, like one question, two question, three question. And if the audience does something surprising like that, usually we have to repeat it for the rest of the audience who couldn't hear to hear. And since the audience has information and we don't, a lot of comedians' first instinct is to be like, oh, what was that? And to fall into the question trap. What I like about you in this moment right here is you're like, you did, Mom? So we're asking the question, but we're restating it so that the rest of the audience can understand what just happened. And then we had a definitive statement to solve that. Let me beat him up, which then prevents us from falling into question trap because we take a stance on it. So anytime we find ourselves asking a question of the audience, just make sure that we have some sort of feeling, point of view, resolving line before we go into second question, and we did it on instinct here, and I think that really helped that moment. Instead of like, you did, Mom? When did that happen? Who was he? Where did he go? Then we would have fallen into the trap, and then it's sort of, but like we didn't at all. And so I like that because it's, once again, it's a higher skill stand-up. It's a higher tier stand-up skill, and a lot of times it takes people some time to get there. Just because our natural human instinct is like, oh, I don't have information, they have information. What is information? But then we lose credibility as the source of information in the room because we're sort of like handing it to them. Does all that make sense? Does that check?
Yeah, no, totally. And, I think, I've definitely fallen into that trap where you kind of lose like kind of control or like dominance over the argument or over the audience. And I felt like in this situation, I didn't really lose control. We're just kind of playing. It's fine. Everyone's kind of like, equal participant. But at the end of the day, I still have the mic in my hands. So I'm still kind of controlling the narrative, which is, really important.
Yeah, and another thing that I usually tell comics is the way I like to deal with hecklers is kind of how you're dealing with hecklers is I treat them as like naughty children who I like really enjoy what they're doing, but we have to stay on task. Like, I'm not, instead of like, shut the fuck up. Instead of like, how dare you do that? Some comics get like really, aggressive about them shutting down hecklers, and like, okay, you shut down the heckler, but now you look like the asshole. So I love that we're like rolling with the punches, but it's whatever, it's fine. Okay, you're a scam. Okay, now let me keep talking, please. We gotta go along with the agenda, but hey, no harm, no foul that you did that thing. So I love the attitude and that it resolves it, but it does not make us the bully in the resolution.
Let me softly verbally assault this 50-year-old man at this. That sounds like kind of like elder abuse. I can't do that.
Funny because earlier we were talking about if you improvise a moment and you find something funny to take it to its comedical logical conclusion, and then here we are 2.5 minutes later doing that. We had this one line about like, oh, I'ma handle him, and then us bringing the ramifications of like, oh yeah, this 50-year-old man, oh no, that's elderly abuse, oh okay, no, we're expanding the improvised bit. So I love that. This is exactly what we were talking about earlier. So kudos, yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
kind of worse than getting ghosted by a person. A corporate entity, not the best. And they made me do 5 interviews within 5 days. Yeah, it was one of those. They made me do a group interview. They made me do an interview with my supervisor, the head of the department, an instructional interview, and just another group interview to close it. And they told me they'll let me know on Monday. Monday comes by, I text them and I email the guy who was interviewing me. And he was like, we'll let you know in a few days. I emailed him again, never got back to me. And I went in person for this shit. I got out of my house and went in person. And, luckily I got a job a few weeks later. And, but now.
Okay, how do we feel about the ghosting bit?
Yeah, definitely. Probably should have tightened it up a little bit. I think I went into a bit more details. I should have just said, I went to 5 straight interviews, maybe listed a few of them out. And, after 2 weeks of me emailing them, they never got back to me. Maybe like 2 or 3 sentences instead of like 6 sentences about the whole process,
Sure, I could go a few ways with that. That is a great way to solve it. Another way is right now, the interviews as we list the interviews, it's kind of like, here's some information, here's some information, here's some information, here's some information, and we don't really leverage it until like, and these were in person. Versus if we wanted to keep all 5 interviews, we could be building suspense about like, I went to an in-person group interview. Yeah, I drove for an hour, went to an in-person instructional interview, gave them 3 hours of my own work. I went to this. I bought them dinner. They didn't even call me back. And then we sort of been like, building the tension for that. They didn't call me on Monday in a specific way instead of sort of like, I did this, and then this, and then this, and then they didn't see me Monday. If we want to keep these specific interviews, or we could play with like, I went to a group interview, I went to a one-on-one interview in a hotel room, don't tell anyone about that one. Like if we wanted to be a little silly, we could also throw that in there. If we wanted to keep the list, or we could just be like, I went to 5 interviews and they didn't even call me, as a more streamlined way. But there's lots that we could do with that. I just think the reason it didn't work so well in this iteration is because it just felt like an information dump when we were dropping the interviews instead of building in a specific way with either like the way we're performing it or the ideological ideas of the interviews. But also, if we cut it out, then that problem solves itself. If we're just like, yeah.
I think like those Make-A-Wish kids before they got all like sick and stuff, bullied people back in high school. I like to think so. I think the people who believe they're watching them on TV, meeting their favorite celebrity and shit, meeting Zendaya and Tom Holland and stuff. They're in the hospital room and they're like, damn, any day now, motherfucker. That's what I think.
Okay, great. How do you feel about this final joke in the clip that we have today?
Yeah, it was all right, and I remember getting a pretty good response to it at the time, but yeah, it's all right bit because usually that bit with like maybe some Make a Wish kids, were mean or like assholes back in the day. Some people are like, I have never thought about it like that, so I think. Maybe some people might be a little bit afraid to laugh or just like, wow, I never really heard.
Yeah, I think we might. I think the people that really like us are in for the joke immediately, and then some people are like, I don't know how comfortable I am laughing at dying kids. So I think we might just need maybe instead of like a, do you think they ever bullied? And then the audience will like laughs at this idea, be like, I mean, statistically, some of them had to. Like, if we can give some logical points, I think it might help buy in the people that might be like, I'm not ready to laugh at dying kids yet, and so they can join the people that are already like actually loving us enough. They're like, okay, let's go to Silly Town. I don't care that maybe if dying kids are on the menu as far as what we're being Silly Town about. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, totally. I definitely should like add that. Like, yeah, that just logical reasoning and part of it. Like, statistically, all these kids are just like all nice and cutesy stuff.
So, having just watched this together, this is the end of the clip as we have it. Anything that we've talked about that you might want to reference again? Anything you would do next time, wouldn't do next time? Just anything to like sort of tie a bow around us having just watched this 5 minutes of your stand-up together, just sort of like, be like, okay, and fulfilling conclusion.
Honestly, feel pretty good about the same. I wasn't at first initially. I was like, I'm not sure about this, but actually watching it over a few times, I'm like, wow. I definitely, could have like executed a little bit better here and there. Maybe what's, just some taking, a breath or a beat here and there, or just maybe adding on to a joke. But I think overall I did pretty solid, 2 weeks post surgery doing stand up for the first time with a sling on. But it's definitely this is this tape will probably have a special place in my heart because first produced show, well, co-produced it with a friend, but first produced show, and raised $500 for charity. So definitely something I will look back on.